It's 8:30 a.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Alrighty. Item 3 on our agenda is an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Is there anyone that would like to visit with the schedule some time on the agenda? Seeing none, move on to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any changes or any requests? None. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Agenda is approved. Item 5 is consent agendas. We have approval of the minutes, approval of travel requests, approval of personnel action notices, and approval of the human services report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments on any of those reports? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce. Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is routine business, approval of claims. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce. Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right. Item B under that is recognition of employees' anniversaries, and we'll have Commissioner Pierce present those awards. We're just going to kind of rotate those presentations amongst the commissioners. I think it's appropriate that we all appreciate the service.
Manny has served 5 years of service with the Brookings County Sheriff's Office. Congratulations. Greg Inns. And Greg has served 10 years of service with the Brookings County Sheriff's Office, and you'll give him the certificate.
I will do.
Thank you. Cherokee. Thank you very much. You have served 10 years of dedicated service with the Brookings County Department of Equalization, and I pronounced your first name wrong. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you do. Tammy Hanson. Tammy has served 15 years of service with the Brookings County Register of Deeds. Thank you. And I really appreciate it when you fix me up when I'm in your house. Did nothing wrong. Scott Sebring. Scott has served 20 years of dedicated service with the Brookings County Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Scott, for everything that you've done. Cliff Frederick. Okay, are you accepting on his behalf? Give him a certificate. Thank you.
And I believe Cliff was 20 years?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. And again, we appreciate all of you working for the county, and it's just a small certificate suitable for framing. Thank you. Department head reports. We'll start with the Highway Department report with Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll start off first with the road closure on 14. We had a lot of issues. I know Marty and I worked together on that for a temporary time there while that was closed. We had County Road 8 closed to through traffic only, try to keep them off that gravel road. And then after a couple accidents over the weekend because of folks going around the barriers, the DOT had asked us to help them with some signage, so we gave them some additional signage to to try to keep people from going around the barriers and getting into an accident. Seems to me like now everything's kind of back to normal. I think the DOT got all their signs picked up too. June 5th, I met with Commissioner Jensen and Commissioner Krogman and Stacy in regards to the township funding requests. There'll be, I don't know when we're gonna cover that later in the meeting. Okay. And then I also went out and evaluated each site. So everybody knows that I went out and looked at everything. June 5th, Bose Construction completed the paving on Brookings County Road 8 and began work on 46. And June 6th, they had 8 marked, and 46 is going to be marked today if anybody has been getting any calls about no striping on that road yet. Also on June 6th, I met with the City of Elkton for their funding request to put an overflow drainage across Brookings County Road 33, which will be bored and cased underneath the road. The City of Elkton has a permanent easement on both sides of the road on 33 down to 218th Street. Essentially what this is they're pumping their manholes across the road into a drainage tile that they're installing all the way down to their lagoons. So I recommended it for approval with all the permitting they went to the extent to get. I feel it'll help our road ditches also and alleviate some of the, there was a landowner to the south as they were pumping their overflow water down to the south. It had flooded another property, and this will help alleviate that. If any of you guys have had any calls on that, this is the measures that the City of Elkton's taken. I guess if you have any questions when we touch on that permit, just kind of wanted to make a note with that. June 10th, Colin and with Banner and I went out and visited the 3 preservation grants. They're completed. They got a few checklist items to be taken care of, but those 3 bridges are completed on County Road 19, County Road 23, and County Road 38. So if there's any questions on that, pretty straightforward, I guess, if you guys have any questions.
Any questions from the commission?
I just had a comment. If any of you fellow commissioners would like to see at these bridge sites, they've put up a sign that says preservation grant. It's a pretty nice sign that the state puts up and indicating that bridge was done. So.
Yep. Like I said, there's just a couple of checklist item, minor cleaning things to be done, but other than that, those are completed. June 11th, we had our budget hearing at 1:45, and then finally here the DOT will be holding a stakeholders meeting in regards to 14. Got a bunch of various letters attached with this. Be a couple of different meeting times, as you can see there, Volga and Rural U.S. Stakeholder Group, and on Wednesday, June 26th, 3 to 4:30, on the Event Traffic Stakeholder Group, Thursday, June 27th at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., and then the U.S. 14 bypass, both of those 1 and 3 continuously. I guess I've got the letters with the explanation, the detail on where all those meetings are at, just to inform you guys of that. Did receive a letter ourselves to the highway department as of this week, so the official letter's here if anybody would like to see it. Other than that, it should be the same letter that it's attached in the packet.
Any other questions? Commissioner Pierce?
Are you going to one of those meetings?
Yeah, I was planning on going to the one on Wednesday, June 26th, and I think that will be the one that will probably affect our county roads the most.
Thank you.
Are you doing the STIP presentation in First District? On the, what day is that? That's also Wednesday, the 26th at 10 a.m.
I'll see if I can make it. Where's that at?
In Watertown.
in Watertown?
Yeah, it's First District office. I planned on trying to attend if you can't.
Okay. Okay,
Okay. And then the other one on the Highway 14, that's on Thursday, right? On the
Correct.
27th.
yep.
That's up here. Do we have any idea what they're studying on that?
I haven't gotten a whole lot of detail from the DOT yet, but I'm assuming it's for,
If you read, I think if you read on the letter there, there's about 4 or 5 items they're going to discuss. I think they're looking at putting lights. Well, the one I looked at was a property owner one that was west of I-29. They're talking about putting a light interchange at 22nd Avenue
14.
and 14. But they're also talking about the number of lengths or number of lanes and a couple different things on there. So, and it's kind of open to anything too. So,
Yeah, just so the public kind of knows what
yeah.
is being discussed.
I think property owners all got letters, from my understanding, because I had a property owner send a letter saying, "Hey, this is important. You should get there to it." But so I think that's all there too. But it's also there's public meetings Thursday night at I think what is it 5:30 to 7 or 7?
As part of my report too, I had gotten a different
Right.
notice too, that it was Thursday, let's see here, the
Yeah,
27th at 5:30 here, I'd gotten this.
And if you look down at the bottom of that, it talks about what are the things that they're looking at. Objectives, and so that's the public meeting. That is, otherwise they have stakeholder group meetings, which are all the lists that Brian has on his. Those are stakeholder
Yep.
and stuff in different areas that. So different sets of groups are invited to a certain time so they can focus on that. I think east and west is split for
Right.
people there. And then the ag, like you said, the ag part of it, which is outside of the state limits in Volga, is part of it. And then the general public
It's 5:30.
5:30 here at this meeting.
And you're going to attend which one of the meetings?
I planned on attending the one at 10:30 on the
Wednesday.
On Wednesday,
on Wednesday,
it's at 3. Well,
or 3:30,
Yeah.
or 3 o'clock. Sorry.
3 o'clock Wednesday?
Yeah. That would probably deal with our county roads that come up to 14,
Yep.
east and west of,
Yep.
of Brookings.
I think that's what would most affect us.
Well,
Well, I should
I
say.
access 14 right there by the interstate too, so I'd be interested in finding out what's going on. So, okay, any other questions? There's a lot of different invitations to that. I was trying to get figured out which ones.
yeah, I think I was going to try to go to the public one on Thursday at 5:30 was my thought. But like I said, we have a client that we're working with that is right on Highway 14 that's west of the interstate. So that's one at 3 o'clock, and that's very close to yours. That
Yeah.
one there is one for that stakeholder group, and so we may
That's
go to
at
that
3
one too.
o'clock
3 o'clock, yeah,
Thursday.
here, I think.
Yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of, every detail, but
Yeah.
the ones that pertain to me, I guess, is the ones they made available to me.
I would agree. I think Wednesday would be the one for you to go to for sure.
Yes, I would agree too. Okay, any other questions?
I got one more thing.
Okay.
The equipment purchase of a skid loader. I know I covered it with Dan and Stacy also, but the state does have an open bid with Clark Equipment, and how that works is Clark Equipment offers to their satellite sales areas, so we would be able to purchase the skid loader locally through this bid contract. I had Dan review that. I believe he said everything looks okay. Is there any questions on that?
Am I understanding your summary right, that it's $5,000 more than you budgeted? Is that what you're saying?
No, last year it was budgeted, from the 2019 budget request detail, the skid loader's requested amount at 75,000. So it's actually under by about 4,400,
And it's in your budget?
yes.
Stace, we'll have to have this as an agenda item, won't we, when, to accept the bid? Or is this it?
No, because this was off a state bid, so it's already been bid. So basically, it's just, if you
Just
giving him, he's
consent.
basically just letting you know that that's what he's going to do, is buy off of a state bid. It's not a bid that we're going to let, so it's already done, so
It's in your budget, so we're ready to go. Okay. Any other questions?
I have one on a different topic, if that's okay, at this
Sure.
time. Okay. In claims, I believe it was, there was approximately $160,000 paid out to Graves Construction, and it said the structure number on it, and I never can remember those structure numbers. Which bridge was that for?
That is the, on 27, just south of the power plant,
So that's the Basin
the
Bridge.
Basin Electric Bridge, yep,
Okay,
yep,
that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
yep,
Okay, any further questions? If not, thank you, Brian.
thanks.
Marty, we're going to move on to the sheriff's report next here.
Good morning.
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 Got 39 in jail right now, which we got some out. The month of June, there's quite a few that are sentenced right now, but the month of June, we're going to be getting rid of some of those that are sentenced. And I think the state's attorney has, 6 or 7 today that he'll probably be sending my way. So I did talk to 2 out of the 3 judges, and I haven't talked to the state's attorney yet. You know, most of the ones that he's putting in jail need to be in jail. But I did visit with the judges that if they're not a risk to society, we could use the electronic monitoring. I did call Falk County just in case, because I have 2 coming out of Florida on those ATM fraud cases or theft cases, and Falk County has openings, so if I do need to transport anybody up there. But I think as the month of June goes, we're getting people out, so I think we'll be okay. But just we work with 3 transport companies. The first 2 wanted almost 10 grand to go to Florida. The third will do it for 5. But I told the state's attorney it's probably by covered wagon. But anyway, we'll get them here. So we'll work it out.
Does that come out of your budget or out of Dan's budget then?
I wish it came out of Dan's, but it don't.
Okay, just curious.
I suggested that next year maybe no.
Can't put a price tag on justice.
Anyway, yeah.
Bumper sticker.
Anyway, no, it comes out of my budget. I budget for transport of inmates. The Aurora Corner, I've had 2 business individuals from businesses on the east end contact me about the Aurora Corner, and of course, they're looking at statistics of accidents and so forth there. And of course, my statistics are only my deputy statistics there, so I gave them Martell's number out of Pier that has all the statistics for that corner. But I'm thinking that John Ritterhouse with the state's probably got those, because that intersection's under a study anyway about the traffic flow there. And of course, they're interested in that, which for the 20th Street overpass, they're thinking that if that does come to life, that might help reduce some of the traffic at that intersection. So that's their angle, what they're looking at. So hopefully with that and everything, maybe we can get the state fired up to really look at that intersection and try to keep everybody safe at that. So
And the study that's going on doesn't go that far, right?
right.
It stops at the edge of the bypass.
Yeah. So now they're looking at that, which actually should, I think this will help us look at that intersection a little more with also that group wanting statistics and so forth to reduce traffic at that intersection.
I guess my thought was, I guess the meeting that Brian might go to, we're looking in the county, if we're stopping at the highway bypass, do we ask them to extend the study to the Aurora corner? And see
Yeah.
if they're willing to look in that and have that discussion. I think it'd be good for us to bring that up. At least if they say, no, we won't, but at least we get it in there,
That we've
even though
let-
there's
Yep.
in their mind a little bit that we're having an issue with that corner.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think it's good timing for everything, since we're looking at it, and then with the business people wanting stats and looking at it too, so I think it's just good timing for that. But the other thing is that, actually, this came from Brian to me. He was contacted by Vanderwall. I can't think of his first name. Is it Gary? Phil Vanderwall. Phil Vanderwall lives on County 5, which is actually 464th. County 5 is the road that's at the west end of Volga, and then it goes north. From the stop sign all going north, it's 55 miles an hour, so it's also 55 miles an hour within the city limits. Now, I've contacted the city of Volga, and they're going to take jurisdiction from Highway 14th to the end of city limits. And they've already had a first reading. They're going to reduce the speed limit because they just looked at all their ordinances in Volga, and they missed that area. So now they're going to include that, and they had their first reading already, I believe, by Jameson's email, right? Yeah. And so they're going to reduce the speed limit from 35 from 14 to the edge of city limits, which is maybe a quarter of a mile. It includes 3 residences and a business. So
here.
I'm not quite sure how far it's going to go.
About in this area, right?
Anyway, I've contacted the state's attorney's office, Ben, and I'm working with Ben. Because I figured Dan would want Ben to do it anyway, right? Anyway, and what makes this unique is that if you look at the Vanderwall farm, there's a lot of driveways that come out of that farm. And at the very north end, there's a residence, and they have a daycare. And they would like the speed limit reduced along that section. And talking with Brian, and it makes sense since there's so many driveways. It's not a normal farm operation in other parts that have so many driveways, so it probably makes sense. And so I guess I'm looking, I was going to have a traffic study there, but we're having some software problems with the deputy that does that. He's recently got a new computer in his car, and the software isn't matching. So Sean is going to get that. If you want me to do a traffic study there for speed, I will do that. But I'm in agreement to lower that to 35 from the north to city limits, unless it's similar to Samara on the other side. It goes to, I don't always like that sudden 55 to 35, but we actually on the south side of Volga, we got 55 into a 25. And of course, again, you look for voluntary compliance, just because we put speed limit signs up doesn't mean the people will go slow there or go the speed limit, but we'll work that area once we get the speed limit up, and I'll put the visual radar up too alongside the road to show that reducing. So I guess I'm just looking at to see if the commission is okay with reducing that, and we'll get the measurements and get to the state's attorney to do the ordinance.
This is somewhat similar to Aurora, coming into Aurora, where we dropped the speed.
Yes.
Because of the residential housings and the accesses to the highway, so I don't have a problem with it myself. I think we should move forward with it.
Okay. If everybody else is okay with it. Okay. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Okay. Thank you, Marty. We're going to move on to Mr. Holhauser, do the Veterans and Services Human Report. We do have a PDF, but we'll also get your report.
Good morning. Most of my report's actually dealing with the VA side of things. If any of you have seen on Facebook, Eileen did pass her test that she went to the school for, did very well. We're very happy about that. She also went down to the VA and had her DAV van physical. We currently have 3 others that are on the list of ones that signed up to help drive. If we get about 50% return rate on the applications going out, and if we can get half of them to do the testing, we should be able to get our numbers back up. We would like to have about 15 drivers. And that's coming along pretty well. The other thing is 3M had asked me to come out and present to their veterans out there. And I was there yesterday. I did twice, 12 o'clock to 12:30 and a 4 to 4:30 presentation. And I've already gotten 2 appointments set up from that even first day, it was the first hour I got people coming in. So I'm kind of fired up about that. And you'll notice in the report that I did include the expenditure sheet. I apologize for only putting in 1 year. I did go back and look at the other years. The population from 16 was 1913, and now it's down to 1848, 1,800 individual veterans. The expenditures have went up about 2.2 million more that's being expended on veterans in Brookings County. One of the things that the sheet doesn't really show is that we do get quite a few people from Kingsbury County because Arlington and the lake. So the numbers for Brookings are probably a little bit higher than that. But, this is where they shop. This is where they come to get the repairs and gas and stuff. But that just give you an idea of what amount of traffic we have and what we deal with. And right now we're seeing kind of an increased number, especially with the assisted livings. I think right now all of the assisted livings in Brookings have waiting lists, last I checked. But otherwise, in the individual patients, of course, not a lot of those, but a number of those use the DAV van, and that's, if you look up there, I think the patients, individual patients right now are 670, and I would say probably about 30 or 40 of them use a van because of transportation issues. And I guess the number of patients has went up about 20 since in the last 2 years.
Any questions for Mike? Hearing none. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Hill.
Good morning. On Saturday, we had a couple tornado warnings sent off, and those were some unique situations. We had a summertime popcorn type storms come. Wasn't expected to be severe. Local law enforcement individuals saw a funnel in the cloud above the city of Brookings, called dispatch. They set the alarm off. You can't really blame them one way or the other on that one. The funnel did not touch the ground, so it was not rated a tornado. I contacted the National Weather Service, and there was no severe threat at that time. Later in the day is a different story. At that time, the National Weather Service called me, wanted me to go out between Volga and Brookings and look for rotation of a large system that they had noticed. That is the system that actually broke and ended up going north up into Esteline area where there was actually a tornado hit the ground up north. We set the alarms off in the city of Brookings, mainly because a tornado warning was alerted for Brookings County, and it was raining so hard that if there was a tornado, you'd never see it. The rain was hitting us so hard, so we set the alarm off again. Neither time did we have time to go to the office and get on the computer and send out the messages. We do have the alert system on the phone where you can text out a message from my office. And neither time did I have time to go even get to the office before I had to react. So, typically that system works real good if it's a typical summer pattern where they put the tornado watch out, then we come to the office, we monitor everything, then we start to send out the text messages, then the storms roll in. Typically I track a storm coming out of Huron, Beetle County type area, coming up out of Yankton, or coming in from the east. It's rare that these popcorn storms, but it happens, and I think the city of Brookings did a good job in reacting, and I drove all the way over to Elkton trying to follow where the severe path went on the later storm and didn't see any major. A lot of rain. We had over an inch of rain probably in 10 minutes here in the city of Brookings, so it was a pretty good storm. The underpass over here, you could have kayaked across it again, or walked across if it would have froze. And It's just a bad storm. We had our zoning meeting June 4th. Do you want to have your 9 o'clock meeting?
Yeah. Have you got a lot to go?
Yeah, unfortunately I do.
Okay. We'll have our 9 o'clock. Scheduled agenda items at 9 a.m. is a public hearing on supplemental budget appropriation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. I'm going to open the public hearing at this point on the resolution for supplemental budget. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we're going to look at any comments from the board. Any explanation of the budget item, please?
When we asked for permission to do the publication, I'd explained that in last year, the cities, when they sent the funding request for the E911 budget, they actually asked for a lesser amount than what we had budgeted for and what was appropriated, was planned on. I think it was just kind of a typo on their end, and we just sent it the amount based on the invoice that we received. So this amount brings us up to the amount that was actually budgeted for in fiscal year 2018 for E911. In order to pay that, we have to do at the end of the year, that 32,000 rolled into fund balance. So in order to get that out of there, in order to pay for it, in order to have the budget to pay for that, we need to do this resolution.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Are Janet and Nancy here? Okay. No? Yes? We're going to go ahead and move to our 9:05 scheduled item here, since we're only a couple minutes away from that. It's a discussion and possible action on regarding the Maderi Monument with Janet Gritzner and Nancy Stewart presenting. So we'll have you come up to the microphone here, introduce yourselves, and tell us what you got going on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Nancy Stewart, and this is Janet Gritzer. We're from the Daughters of the American Revolution in Brookings here. And in 1929, our founding chapter helped build the Maderi Monument that is standing down on Highway 77. And in the years, we've noticed that it has come to disrepair. And so it came upon the heart of our chapter to work towards restoration of that monument. And so we did start collecting funds, and we ran into a problem with who owned it. And we spent many hours and much time trying to track down the ownership of that, and worked with the state's attorney.
Right, the state's attorney office, and through two assistant state's attorneys. And Steve Breitzman finally found a process that we could follow, and successful concluded the problem.
The ownership of it.
Yeah.
So we are ready to proceed, and we have a quote from a contractor in town. His name is Rick Nicholson, and we have at least half of the funds, and so we are asking for permission and a way to work out how we can work with the county to restore this monument.
Since the county now is the possessor of the monument property.
Mm-hmm. And we have been working with Stacy Stephenson with that.
Is there any questions on the background of the monument? I can go for hours on that, so. But this is how it appears, and I'm sure that most of you have seen the monument. It's about 1 mile from the southern border of the county as you proceed northward in 77, which used to mean the main highway going through Brookings before the interstate. So it was quite a place for people to gather, and they used to have picnics down there, and I think actually they used more of the property than just the little, it's only 35 feet by 35 feet. So it's not a very big piece of property, and it has a partial fence around it, and it's grassed. around it. And so you can see what the monument is looking like today.
And this picture is actually several years old now, so you can see the deterioration around the base of the steps specifically, and I know there's some stones that have fallen out of, from the masonry of the monument itself as well. So I know I had discussed this topic, probably a couple months ago now, and at that time, I think they had talked about submitting funds to are submitting a grant application, and I think we've kind of moved away from that just because of some of the requirements of the grant. And the quote that you received when last we spoke, it was about $5,800, I think is what, I don't know.
I have it in writing now.
Okay.
We dropped it off yesterday.
All right, so that didn't change at all, so it's
No,
still about that
the
price.
same, right.
So, and I believe these ladies have already raised about $3,000 of that, have done fundraising and probably plan to do some more, but I think they've come, now that the county owns this monument and the monument site, asking for some assistance from us in helping to repair that monument. And it sounds like quite the process, how he's going to do that, but yes, so now this is our responsibility because the county now owns it, so.
And if you have any doubt about what the monument is marking, it's supposed to mark two early towns in the county. And the first town was supposed to be, and I think that I would agree with it, was the first town site in Dakota Territory. It was established in 1857, and it lasted till 1858. And then later on, it became the first town in the county, and it was the county seat for almost 10 years before the railroad actually went through Brookings, and they moved most of Madera buildings to Brookings. And we've been, Stacy has asked the same thing that I have, are there some buildings still in Brookings? That would be very hard to find, and they would be wood frame buildings anyway, so I kind of doubt it. But there are people around that live near the monument say that they have some of the buildings. There's a lot of really interesting history. And the other thing about the monument, it was placed in the 50th, the golden centennial of the founding of Brookings. So it was actually to celebrate the 50th celebration for the founding of Brookings. And so, yeah. But it's dedicated to the pioneers of the county that came in. So that's why it's there. And I have investigated having it put on the National Register. The people in SHPO in Pierre says that it's marginal, but there is a state historic register too that they said it would qualify for. So that would be an interesting thing to pursue.
Stacy, how are we doing the maintenance on the grounds now, since?
Right now, actually, there is a neighbor that currently mows that and has taken that upon himself. I think he lives just maybe across the road from the monument. So, if that's something we need to visit with him about, or if we need to send county staff out there, we still hadn't come up with a great solution to that. But right now, it is being maintained by a neighbor that goes it over and mows it.
We also have, one of our members is a master gardener, and she says she has enough prairie flowers right now that she would donate to plant on the property and get them going. And they would not need maintenance. She said once they start growing, they grow naturally, and they're very pretty.
Yeah, it would be a problem of placement of the plants as opposed to the ease of mowing the area. And there is a history of some time back that the county did mow it.
So today, you're looking for $3,000, is that what you're saying?
Well, we are,
I think.
Well, first of all, we're looking to make sure that it's okay that we go ahead and do this. I'm not sure who would the contractor work with, if he would work with us or work with you, to establish the how this works.
Yeah, and the,
Since
you
it
know,
is a
quality
county.
control over the work. and stuff,
Right, yeah.
Sort of thing, so.
I don't know if we need a easement or,
And none of us are engineers. And we have had this evaluated by Banner, and they told us structurally what is wrong with it, possibilities. Some of it is visually apparent, but there's also this issue of the base, and they, you know, once you take the steps off, there may be some problems with the base of the monument.
Basically, at this point, you're asking us to approve you moving forward. And
Yes,
whatever
and,
funds
we-
are not in stone yet, so to speak, what it may cost to redo this. You've had a Banner estimate, and you've had a masonry guy who's giving you a cost. Is that based off of Banner's estimate, or is that just, he went out and looked at it and thought
he
he'd
went
go
out
from
and
there?
looked at it.
Okay. I think the action today would be to obviously approve your participation in the project and our commitment to the project. The dollar amount, I don't know that we do that today until we get some honest bids for the actual costs. And then we'll obviously consider your funds a donation, and then we would either match or exceed it if necessary. Does that sound appropriate? Is that kind of what you're looking for today?
Sounds reasonable.
You have the
to
bid,
us, I think.
don't you have the bid?
Well, they have a bid, but
It's a quote.
it's a quote,
we-
not based on Banner's.
The Banner study is now 4 years old.
Okay.
And at the dollar amount that this bid came in at, it wouldn't need to necessarily be bid. I mean, you could accept the quote.
This is much lower than the Banner one was.
The Banner was about 13,000.
I guess my concern is to make sure that we get it done right,
Yeah, exactly.
rather than spending $5 when it should have taken $13,000
Well,
worth
for
of
example,
work,
he
but-
quoted, the Banner estimate said about 5,000 to replace the steps.
Right,
And Mr. Nicholson quoted 2,000
okay.
to replace the steps.
Well, that's interesting. It's up to the commission. I think it's a good project, and we certainly, I think, we should participate. It's our property at this point in time. Commission discussion.
I'm in favor of us supporting this project. I understand the issue of who has the responsibility now that we own the land. On the other hand, we don't have the historical expertise, I don't think, to make sure that it's done right. And I'm not sure if I'm hearing you say that if we're willing to put up some money, that you're willing to make sure that it's historically correct. What that would be the issue for me.
I would say yes. We're perfectly willing to work with him and go out and, check and see how it's going and we're putting up our own money, so I think we're.
We're also, and he's concerned about this, because part of the issue is the stonework, and that's probably the one that people would care about most, that, he's going to have to remove most of the mortar, because you can't just patch in mortar and expect it to look correct, so.
We had talked with Stacy about doing bids and decided that. You wanna
I
explain
thought
that?
at the dollar amount that this quote came in at, for someone who does that type of work, at that point, I didn't think it would necessarily need to be bid. Now, if I don't know how many people in the area would bid a project like this anyway, so.
Are you saying that he would, as part of that bid, totally dismantle it and then reassemble it with all new mortar? Is that what you're talking about doing?
He is talking about replacing the mortar. I'm not sure exactly what his process would be. I'm thinking it would be to take a section at a time, to take the stones out and then put them back in, to get them back in the right place. I don't think he's going to take the whole thing down and then put it back up.
No.
Typically, it would be grinding out the surface mortar and replacing it a section at a time, repointing the entire thing. So you're not disassembling the monument in any way. And in most cases, it would be cleaned by the gentlest means possible in order to maintain it. I think it's our responsibility to not only support the project and help provide funding for it, but also enter into a longer-term MOU with DAR to make sure that the long-term preservation of the monument and maintenance of the property is handled in an appropriate way.
What's an MOU?
A memorandum of understanding.
Oh, okay. Because we do not want to have to maintain the property.
But in order for that project to happen, there would have to be some sort of understanding about who's responsible for what. And if you wanted to plant prairie flowers or whatever out there, that would allow us the opportunity to do so in a written way.
Okay.
We could be pretty specific in the memorandum. You guys will participate in constructing that memorandum of what you're comfortable doing, what you're not comfortable doing.
And
so
I guess I have no problem supporting the project, and I feel Mr. Nicholson is well qualified to do the work with the stone and everything. I know in the past there used to be some spirea bushes out there and stuff, and they kind of disrepair and they're kind of eliminated. But I agree with Angie. We need to have who's going to be mowing it and taking care of it after the project is completed. So,
all right. So action today would either be to delay this till you have a memorandum of understanding constructed, which I don't think is necessary. I think it's more appropriate to, if you're comfortable with the quote and they're comfortable with the work, go ahead and okay the funding.
I guess my question for Commissioner Boersma is, do we have enough detail on what that $5,800, whether it encompasses the proper way to do those things that need to be done to maintain the monument?
I could certainly look through what that is and discuss that with
Would
Mr.
you like
Nicholson.
to see the quote?
Sure can,
You
yeah.
can just lay it in front of you and we
Yeah,
all can
there's-
see it.
Explains it just a little bit.
Go ahead and give it to Stacy. Had it down, she'll put it up on the screen here.
So we can all see it.
I think at least drafting a scope document in terms of who's responsible for what parts, in terms of cost, in terms of site oversight of the construction project, all of that is still something that we need to clearly articulate so that we have an understanding of what our responsibility is and what your responsibility is. The last thing that we want is for you to end up being, at least in my opinion, for you all to end up being responsible for the means and methods of construction, which is not your area of expertise, nor should it be your responsibility. As a county, we shouldn't be putting that on citizens, ever. Much like what you said, Mike.
What kind of action do you want to take today?
I would recommend moving forward with a clear outline of scope, fees, and then a discussion with Nicholson Masonry about how they want to proceed in terms of their methods of construction.
How about dollar amount?
I think that'll depend on scope and fees, because if we're going to hire someone to manage construction and deal with construction oversight, or if we are going to handle that, or...
I say, we're only talking about a $5,800 project right now. I don't
Right.
think we want to hire somebody to
Nope.
pay them $2,000 to oversee it. Either, I don't want to make it too big of a thing here. I mean, you guys have done the legwork. You've obviously put your own money in it. I don't want to drag it out into a little bit of bureaucracy type of stuff of that, but we do need to find out who's, I mean, it's our responsibility, and that area is, and we want this monument, I think we want this monument to look good, and it does look in disrepair. I do trust Rick with his abilities to do that. He's been doing it a long time, and I think he would do a good job of doing that. My thought is, I'm wondering if we could go ahead, give them approval to get this started. I don't have a problem with coming up with the difference of the bid You know, you're coming up with $3,000, we'd be coming up with 2,800. We move forward, and then we work as a board on the memorandum of understanding as this process gets going, after the project is done. And then after the work, in the contract, I'm guessing with Mr. Nicholson would be with the county, don't you think? That's what it would be? You guys could look at, have input, we would do the final, you know, looking at it, make sure it's done correctly with your input. And then we would have a memorandum of understanding of how to continue forward with the maintenance and of that area. But I would hate to wait and try to pull that stuff together when you guys have done your work already and have already started and want to get going with this and stuff too. So, you know, I guess I would make a motion to move forward with the project with the bid from Mr. Nicholson, and that we would try to come up with the remaining balance of the funds for the quote.
Second.
I just want to make sure that when the bid says cut out and grout rock, that it's historically correct in what we're doing. I don't know that that means the same thing that Commissioner Boersma was talking about when she said the right way to handle the monument part. I'm fine with Mr. Nicholson, but I just think we need to have that conversation with him. And I support the project, and I'm in favor of us putting money into it. I just want to be sure we don't do anything to damage the monument in the way of making some repairs.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? At this point, with this motion, it basically tells you we're going to pick up the cost up to the $5,800 at this point. But very carefully here, it says as long as the structure is solid. So if we have some issues with that, then obviously we're going to have to come up with some additional funding. And I don't know at what point does it go to the bid process. If we're in the process and find out the structure is not solid and we end up at $13,000 like Banner said, at what point do we have to stop and say we need to bid the rest of this?
Your bid limit on something like this would be
50.
25,000.
Okay, we're underneath that.
50,000 for contract
50,000.
services.
Okay, so we're all right then. So I don't have a problem with this motion moving forward. And then you need to work with Stacy and the rest of the commission on the rest of it. You know, obviously, I have no expertise in those areas either, but I agree with Commissioner Boersma that you're just going to take the surface grout out and re-grout everything. And unless it's bad all the way back, then we're going to look at some additional expenses, I'm sure. So at this point, the motion is to for the $2,800 in year 3. Stacy's going to have to work with Dan and get a contract put together with Mr. Nicholson to do this, and we'll contact him on that and take care of that, then I would assume. And the memorandum of understanding is not part of the motion, but we will work on that also. Okay? Any other comments on the motion?
Not on the motion, but I'll work with Stacy and the state's attorney and the DAR on specifications for making sure it's the right grout.
Okay. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hopefully this will be a successful project. I'm sure it will. I've driven that by that many times.
I wanted to add one point, is that we've had a, fairly large contribution from the Lions Club, so there are a lot of community groups interested in this. And Kiwanis were the ones that donated the services of Banner, so.
Thank you.
And you'll have more interest once you start the work.
Oh, yeah.
You can keep that. That is a copy.
Thank you. Bob, we got about 6 minutes.
And we'll get it done.
But
Okay.
before he moves on, Mr. Chair, could I make a comment on the tornado stuff for a minute before we get into a different topic?
Yes, you may.
So I talked with Bob before we started our meeting today, and one of the things that I noticed on Saturday when all of this was going on is that nothing came through on iPOS, and there were no notifications that came across digitally to citizens, because I think I have all my stuff set up right for that. And then Bob told me that those notices don't go out unless we have somebody in our emergency management office to send the messages out. And I guess that concerns me a little bit. And I wonder if one of the things that we might want to look at, and in particular, when if Bob were to be gone and Richard's not in the county, and we need to have that message sent out, because tornadoes don't just happen between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, obviously, if we shouldn't be looking at some other type of backup where we had some type of ability for somebody at the sheriff's office to send that out if it needed to go out or whatever. It concerned me that none of the other safeguards that we have put into place and that we pay good money for were implemented. And part of it was because that tornado didn't touch down. I get all that, and thank God it didn't. But emergency management is all about being prepared. And I just think that we need to look at how we do those notifications one more time and make sure we've got a system in place where we can get that taken care of if we don't have somebody in the office downstairs.
Duly noted. Go ahead and continue, Bob.
Thank you. The planning and zoning meeting last June 4th, at the last county commission meeting, we had a meeting that night. We only had 6 members showed up. Both of our alternates showed up, by the way. But because it was the first day that farmers could get into the field to use their farm equipment because of the weather, we only had 6 people. So the only thing that we did that night was we heard one plat, and we postponed everything else to July, or a special meeting, which we're going to have June 20th. I went to Aberdeen for the rapid tag training. We attended the budget hearings. We had a joint jurisdiction meeting, which I'm sure the county commission would discuss at their time, on June 13th. We attended the PPC pod exercise meeting. October 15th, there will be a full-scale exercise that we will count as our emergency management 2020 full-scale exercise. And we're going to include our whole emergency operations center, to include our public information officer position. Amateur Radio Relay League, our local radio club, they're going to be out at the Brookings Gun Club this Saturday. Typically, we allow them to use our emergency operations center trailer, because in the case of a real disaster, they will be the ones operating the radios if we lose main communications. I'll be gone as soon as I get out of this meeting until next Thursday. I'm on vacation later this week, and I go to a US DOT meeting the 24th through the 26th. There's a flood modeling class in Pierre. Deputy Hogan will be attending. July 11th at 3 p.m., there will be a FEMA applicant briefing for all towns, townships, county highway, and county EM offices. These are the individuals that actually sent claims in to be looked at by FEMA, and that will be on July 11th. Each one of the applicants will be sent a letter with instructions and sheets to fill out to bring to that meeting to see if they're going to receive any funding. There's an ICS 300 class July 8 and 9 at SDSU, and a ICS 400, that's Incident Command System Training, 400 class July 22 to 23rd at South Dakota State University. And I did receive a drainage call, a citizen from south of town. They seem to think the city and county needs to get back together and form another task force to talk about drainage going south, similar to what occurred a few years ago. And I told them I'd bring it to your attention, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Any desire to do a task force on drainage again?
Who requested it?
The citizens who live south.
You said a landowner
A
requested it?
landowner contacted me, a citizen south of town.
Well,
Is
I
that a
think
citizen in, are we talking Madera Township when we say south of town, or are we?
Well,
because-
Brookings County, I guess I didn't look at the township map, to see
Okay.
which township they're in. It was due straight south of town.
I think, again, we could probably have Bob take a look at that when he's got some time here and determine which areas and whether we have anything different than we did back then, and have a study if we need to, but otherwise, I think we'll leave it up to Bob to bring it back to us. Really deem necessary to revisit that. Okay. Any other questions for Bob? Thank you. It's 9:30 a.m. and we have a report from City Engineer Jackie Lanning on our parking lot.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
I had been working throughout this last winter with Mr. Jensen on some options for your parking lot paving out by the Adventure Center. And we had Geotech take a look of the area, and they had some old boring samples, and they also sent a staff up here and did some, they dug down and checked the subgrade and the gravel and so forth. And we wanted to show you two options based on their recommendation, and sent you a couple drawings here. It looked like your budget, we were talking about $150,000 for a budget. I have a map here. So what they found when they did their borings and sampling is that the east driveway is quite poor. The materials are quite poor, and they're also poor just west of the existing pavement. I don't have a pointer or anything, but west of the current concrete pavement, that area is also very poor condition, and as well as north of the concrete pavement, right where that 270 is in there. That's probably the worst area, this whole southern portion. And so what they were recommending, so they had some spot areas where they recommended thicker material and fabric, and what we combined their recommendation into two options. And one of them was to, what you're looking at here is 6 inches of gravel and 6 inches of reinforced concrete. And using our latest bid prices, this is about the area we would be able to, we anticipate we could pave. We would have to bid the project out, or if you want the city to put together the plans and specs for you, we could do that. And what we tried to, we changed this a bit from the drawing we showed you earlier, where we wanted people to be able to drive in and park on hard surface, and then also circulate to the north and be able to park on the hard surface bit, but backing out of the stalls onto pavement. And our earlier drawing had kind of a long east-west route, and then we were able to accomplish more pavement than we originally planned, and this way people could back out onto the hard surface, if that makes sense. Where you're into those, like the very northern row of stalls, you would back up to the south onto hard surface pavement. And although we would anticipate just stopping the pavement north of where it stops now, just going straight north from your current concrete and then expanding northerly. And this is your concrete option, approximately 16,000 square feet. In the next drawing, we have 12 inches of gravel. We would sell either option. We would salvage whatever gravel is good. We would scrape that off, pile it to the side, dig down, and in this option we have subgrade fabric. We would place 12 inches of gravel using what gravel is there, plus adding more, and then 4 inches of asphalt. And we were really concerned at first with our high water table, whether asphalt would hold up very well. They wrote out a pretty lengthy, email, feeling like if we got the conditions to optimal moisture, used our subgrade fabric, 12 inches of base course, that we would be able to achieve some good pavement. And in this option, it's similar to the concrete one, although we're going further west. I didn't do an addition on how many stalls. I think he has 22 per row on showing there, and then 9 next to the building. The difficult part with this site is as you go west and south, it's very, very flat. So these both parking lots are really at minimal grade, and it's hard to, we can't raise anything because we don't want to flow water towards the building. And so we're trying to keep slope away from the building. I was hearing feedback, the group wasn't in favor of the bioswale next to the building. So we're really, either of these options, we would just try to blade the current gravel west of the pavement as best we can to get it to sit towards the west. And it'll still probably sit on the gravel, the water well, because it's so flat out there, it doesn't drain. There's nowhere to really drain it to. And then trees are actually a little bit higher. It's hard to survey in there because they're not able to get a radar or a satellite feed. But it looks like the water already sits on the gravel and it'll probably continue to do so. But what we're trying to do is provide as much pavement material for customers as we can. And I wondered what the group thought of either of these options, or if you had, we don't have to do the plans and specs for you. If you had somebody else in mind, that's fine too. I just thought I'd present what we found so far with our geotech analysis.
I guess the only question, say in the future, Jackie wanted to add on, would this be able to, like, say to the north, be able to add on this without any problems?
Yes, either one. We would just continue to go to the north. The west area, I guess I would anticipate paving more to the north than to the west, just because the west is so flat. That's kind of where the water sits. More of a less used area to the west. So we would just pave it to the north. Now, if we went way further north, you could change the roads so there are north-south driving lanes if we paved it quite a bit to the north. But I think for this type of customer use, the east-west fashion seems like that would work. You know, unless the group really wants a north-south, but they would be pretty short north-south rows.
So both of these projects, though, are both the same, similar, they stay within our budget?
We would know for sure after we bid it.
Okay.
And that's what I wondered too with this group. If you want us to proceed with either of these, or if you knew which option you'd like today, we could put together the plans and specs if you know you wanted asphalt, or if you wanted me to bid it out with both alternates, and then you would choose one, we can do it that way too. We have to write a lengthier set of specs because you'll have your concrete specs and your asphalt specs, and then we would award based on budget. You know, we write some language in the specs based on budget and selection. And then you have two different kinds of bidders, the concrete prime bidder and an asphalt prime bidder, but that's an option too, unless you knew which material you wanted right up front, and then we would just write one alternate.
But Geotech's recommendations are that either one of these, with the application you have, will hold up and perform equally.
Yes. They had a very minimum, 4 inches of asphalt over 6 inches of gravel, and 5 inches of concrete over 4 inches of gravel for the very good areas. But then they had a lot more gravel and fabric for the poor areas. So what we are recommending is one thickness of each, the gravel and the asphalt, just to make a consistent section, because you might find differing materials between their potholes. So we've thickened it up even in the good areas, if that makes sense.
Can you go back to the previous picture, please? Stacy, or the previous one? That's it right there. So
39.
this is just two different options. So if we go to the previous one where there's 22, that could be over our budget. Are you thinking with the bid specs that this is in our budget?
This is concrete.
Right, but
The
so
other one's black.
the other one's blacktop, so we're gonna get more, if we go with the blacktop, kind of what you're saying with your bigs, that we're gonna get 22.
It looks like
rather-
you'll get more pavement
Okay.
with the asphalt. That's using our current bid prices that we've received on our other city projects this year. So it could be different, or it will be different. This is just what we anticipate based on our city bid prices.
Question, Jackie, if we went with the concrete option and decided at some point we needed to expand that to the west, would that engineering make that possible ahead of time, or is that prohibit us from going further west?
No, that would be an option also. It was just with our current bid price on concrete, we didn't think we could get that many square feet.
So we could tag onto this in 3 or 4 years if we find out
And
this
go further west.
isn't adequate parking and we need to go a little bit farther to the west, we could
Yes.
add on.
Or if you want all options, we could bid both. And then the board can really see, with asphalt, you'll get X amount of square feet. Because we would probably try to pave as much square feet as you
Budget
have
allows,
budget
yeah.
for if you want to go that way. Like, let's say your asphalt bid is 130,000 and you really want to spend the whole 150, then we would expand probably westerly, or same thing with concrete.
I guess maintenance to the two, I guess, long-term maintenance. Jump Brian in here too. You guys do maintenance to asphalt, can do that regularly. How about maintenance to concrete? Is that something you guys do at the highway department too, or is it mainly asphalt?
Mainly asphalt. Concrete, obviously, the maintenance, interval's gonna be a lot bigger. Asphalt, you'd be looking at like a slurry seal on a parking lot or something like that, every 5 years.
But that's something that our department, our county department could do without going outside and contracting that.
I mean, when you look at a parking lot, I don't think you'd want to put a chip seal out there, but you'd probably want like a slurry seal, and that'd have to be contracted. We don't have the equipment.
Do you, like cracking, do you seal cracks and stuff
We could
like
seal
that?
the cracks, but as far as like, applying, so to speak, a seal over it, it'd need to be contracted.
Okay.
Any other comments? Personally, I like the idea of concrete, and I like the idea that if this is what we can afford now, it sort of solves the issue to a certain point. But I like the ability to expand it in the future if we found it necessary. I prefer concrete, 6 inches of concrete. It's going to be pretty much maintenance-free. And I think over the long run, you're about even on costs. Obviously, you have a few less spaces with this, but I don't know. I don't have an event count on cars where we're at. You guys have any idea if this is going to make a dent in it, or it's just not making a dent either way?
I think the main thing is to get anything done. Even the smaller the area, at least the people will have a place that can drive up and drop people off also. I'm happy with either one, the asphalt or the concrete. I think it'll perform out there because there's not large trucks going in and out of there. The garbage trucks come in the back, so I guess either way would work, in my opinion. So.
The only thing I was looking at is we do have quite a few where the 2.7 is right there. Just to the west of that, we do have people parking in front of the green space there. And I think originally we had looked at a line from east to west all the way to the 162 there to be able to have that, but I understand where you're coming back. You'd be backing up into unpaved and stuff too. But that's why I'm kind of leaning towards the asphalt for the ability to get more spaces and cover. Jackie, has there been any discussion with the city of potential down the road of finishing off and hard surfacing this whole parking lot, and what material you might use down the road if you were to tie into this, say, for example, because of the use and stuff, we get football, youth baseball there, that we decide to finish it off. Is that something you would look at concrete, or is that something you look at asphalt, or what's your kind of history of the city and those types of surfaces?
I don't think this is on our current CIP for the Parks Department. I haven't seen it listed lately. And we've really been using both. Some of our in-town parking lots, we've used concrete where we have curb and gutter and pipe. Many of our parking lots are asphalt, though. We have way greater number of asphalt parking lots than we do concrete. So this case, I could see us matching whatever's chosen here. I don't know that we have a preference. As long as I had a good geotech advice on that both would hold up, and that was my main concern with that high groundwater table. Would one deteriorate quicker than the other? But I feel like we got some good advice and that will follow. So I think from the city, we could use either. I don't know we have a preference. We have the same maintenance program probably the county does, where we do our sealing every 7 years. We can do overlays easily. The cost is usually affordable. But some of our recent projects like 22nd Avenue, our concrete bid was lower than the asphalt bid. But that's a combined project, a little bit different than just a parking lot.
Does snow removal, for longer or more space, get it further west? If it's a shorter concrete and then turn into gravel and continue to push west, does that make a difference on snow removal?
That's my only concern, you know, when it gets soft in the spring, we really don't have small equipment that we move the snow with. We're probably gonna have to be looking at some different type of equipment, and I don't know where we're at with, if we're gonna look at adding that in and having it contracted, because either way, you know, we could potentially damage it.
And later in the meeting, we're approving the snow removal and lawn care bids for this building, the courthouse, the 1921 parking lot, or that area, excuse me, not for snow removal, but I think that's something that Kristen and I need to visit with too about doing a bid for this facility, for those services, and whether or not, you know, I guess direction from the board if you want to include, instead of tying up the highway department to go out there and remove the snow, because of their large equipment, if we include snow removal of that parking lot as part of a bid.
But one of the things to consider too when you bring that in is if there were damages to curbing or what have you, that it could be the liability of the contractor. Whereas if I damage it, it's on us.
So do you want us to ask Jackie to do it both ways on the bids? Okay. Do we have a preference at all?
I guess I'm leaning towards the asphalt.
Ryan's asphalt?
I just think getting the extra space, I think, will really help the utilization, the ability to get the snow further west in one pass. But those are minor things, I guess. Those, you know, if concrete's the most effective and the best use of material to be in this space, that's fine with me too. I don't want to dwell on the little things either. So
I'm fine with either one. I'd like to have the bids in the alternative because I think we'll get better bids.
I guess we do the alternates, Jackie.
Both? Okay. What would you like for a deadline?
I'll give that to board members.
A month ago?
well, yeah, I guess what's realistic, I guess. So I don't want to ask for 30 days if that's not realistic, but is getting bids within?
Because when's your next meeting?
July 2nd.
Typically, you want give contractors 2 weeks to bid it, and Jackie whatever time she needs to actually put the specs together.
Yeah, we would probably advertise right away. I don't know if I could get it out by tomorrow. We kind of have things started because we knew this would be coming up for one of the alternates, and then we would have to award it at your meeting.
Otherwise, the next meeting, end of July or middle of July, I suppose.
Okay. I'm thinking it'll probably be a September deadline, just knowing, you know, it'll take contractors time to get in there. October is better. I know that's later than folks would probably want to see, but we're getting kind of late in our bidding season too.
When do you think could we ask for, I mean, what I'm worried about is if we go with asphalt and we get too late in the season that it doesn't get done until next spring, can we get this done before?
November 1st is the latest I would use for any of our paving. Yep.
Okay.
Or, and many times I'll use October 15th because in that way, they start getting worried around October 15th, but then you for sure get done by November 1st.
If we wait and accept a bid, or you're saying have a project done by October?
Right.
Completion date.
A deadline, completion date, right.
Okay, deadline. I thought your deadline for request of bids.
Oh, we don't, does this group do a request for bids step?
Or no, just whatever, I mean, what do you?
We don't, we just
Okay.
would have, if you vote today, we'll advertise right away, and then I was just getting some guidance on the deadline in the spec book.
Okay.
Be October
I misunderstood
15th, is that?
Sounds good.
And then, do you have a recommendation on liquidated damages that the county usually uses for past the deadline?
Free?
Free.
Free.
No, they don't.
We should put a number in there.
I don't know what that is.
Whatever's usually appropriate.
Yeah, whatever's appropriate.
Okay, it might be I'll look back, maybe $200 a day or $150, somewhere in
That's
there.
fine.
I do have one quick question for you of this one up front here. I see that the black line surrounding the outside goes to the walking path. Where the semi there, the difference between the two, is that's still gravel there? Is that something that we would try to match up to the road there? I know that's kind of right-of-way area starting. Is that done?
Is that asphalt
That's
already?
asphalt.
That's
I
all.
think it
Is
is
it asphalt
currently
already?
asphalt.
Yep.
Okay,
Right.
I didn't know how far that went down.
Yeah, we would saw probably a neat line right there and then start right at the bike trail.
Okay.
Okay, so we have both alternates and advertise as soon as we can, is what I'm hearing. October 15th for a deadline, and then liquidated damages somewhere in that 150 to 200 per day.
Just one other question, looking at the drawing here. On the asphalt one in particular, it looks like you're going to continue the sidewalk in front of the building to the west with the additional parking spaces. Would that be done with concrete, the
Yes.
sidewalk? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do a concrete sidewalk.
Because
and then-
we have curb on the other side with the sidewalk, or is it? All right, so we'd match it up.
That
So
kinda
curb,
keeps the water off.
that would keep the water off. That was my concern is that.
Right,
that-
yeah.
Okay.
And you can see from those shots, it really, with the like 1602, 95, and there's about a foot drop to the west. The water would just probably slope off the pavement, and like I said, it'll probably still pool to the west of there, but we do have some drop to help with the flow, I guess, or that we're raising the pavement up somewhat, so that way hopefully that'll dry and then the water can sit in the gravel.
Okay.
Jackie, if we wanted to keep that green space, how big a change would that be for like a change order if we brought this to the board and they had, and Kristen, who's our executive director, has ideas for that green space and stuff like that, is that a big change order to say, we're just gonna run the line from the 2.96 just across on the green space and keep those those spots out of there?
Oh, and not pave that?
And not
Yeah,
pave
that's
that.
not that big of a deal. We would just work with the low bidder if you wanted to change things.
Okay.
Our local bidders are really pretty good about flexibility if we want to change things.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd just like to comment, thanks a lot for what you've done on this project, so.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a cooperative effort, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back to previous page. And Bob is done. We're down to Vicky's report.
Good morning. To give you an update, we have had training that our employees have been going to for the new motor vehicle system. We had 2 attend in Watertown yesterday, and we have training today in Sioux Falls and tomorrow that we have another 3 employees going to. So the new motor V system is going to take effect the beginning of next year. They're saying January, but it will probably be later in the year. So just to kind of give you an idea of that. And with this new system, we need to have an upgrade with our computers. So we are replacing 3 computers. Sean has already ordered the computers. I think they're in. Him or Eric will be installing them probably next week or in the month of June yet. And that was all something that was in my budget. So we do have that on order. And the ones we aren't replacing, he will be just upgrading. So we'll be able to meet the requirements for the new Motor V system. And you should have received in your packet the finance officer's report for the month of May. And with the surplus, general fund surplus analysis, we're at 39.59%, which is pretty much where we've been other years. So I would say we're right on target with that. And then in there too, we have the be it noted items with auditor's account with the treasurer,
the payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditure report, and the register of deeds statement of fees. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of the finance officer's report for me.
Any questions?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. We'll move on to item 8, regular business. Our next scheduled item is 10:30 with BKV's expansion design development update. Regular business item A is an action to approve resolution number 19-18, a plat of Lucas Addition in the northwest quarter of Section 11, Township 111 North, Range 49 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Bob?
Yep, this is the only item we heard at Tuesday night's meeting. It was approved by the Planning Commission and sent to this board with a recommendation of approval.
Any questions? Call the roll.
Pierce.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B under regular business is an action to approve agreement number 19-37, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by the city of Elkton in Elkton Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Anybody want a discussion? Any explanations? Nothing in particular?
I had a
Nothing from
question.
Brian? Okay.
Sorry. And this is for Bob more than anything else. Does what we're doing here with the city comply with what we do with citizens as relates to under the road stuff? When we're-
From the planning and zoning standpoint and drainage, yes, because of that, they've got a letter from the Department of Environment and Natural Resource. We did require them to work with the county highway department because it's the county highway that they're going under. But as far as the legality of what they're doing, yes, because they had that letter included from the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resource.
Any other questions?
And one thing I would like to comment too, they still would need to get all their permitting to utilize this, you know, in the event of an overflow. So they're still gonna have to, every time they want to pump, get a letter from the DNR saying they can pump their overflow into this. So.
Okay.
And there's oftentimes that can be verbal in an emergency situation. DNR's got procedures on how to, with small municipalities, on how to relieve stress on their internal systems.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item C is an action to approve the low bid for lawn care and snow removal services to Razor's Edge. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Any explanation?
So this came first before the Joint Powers Board. We've gotten to a point now with our snow removal and lawn care that we need to bid these services. And so working with the city, we did sort of a joint bid for this facility as well as the courthouse and then the county's responsibility. We own the parking lot at the 1921 building. We do have an agreement with Mills to do the snow removal over there, but the rest of the upkeep of that parking lot is our responsibility, so that was included in that bid as well.
Any other comments? Questions? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item D is an action to approve a petition creating the Bortnum Beach Road District. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments? No comments from anyone?
We do have somebody from the road district here. If you have any questions, they would be willing to answer anything.
If you have no comments, we have no questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Well, thanks for coming. Item E is an action to approve spending $5,000 towards a cost-benefit survey for the 2019 20th Street Interchange Grant application. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Commissioner Pierce? Want to
Just
explain it?
that it's anticipated that the cost-benefit survey is going to cost approximately $15,000. And I believe that the city will probably pay a portion, and there might be some private money that would come in from the East Brookings business area. So this would be our share.
Okay. And if the others do not approve or come up with the fundings, we won't be doing an update.
We won't be doing it.
Okay. So we all understand it's contingent upon the other funding.
That's correct.
Okay. No other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item F is an action to approve a request to fill vacancy for an equipment operator in the Highway Department. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Brian? None? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item G is an action to approve a request to fill vacancy for an office coordinator in the state's attorney's office. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments?
No comment.
No comments. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item H is an action to approve a request to fill vacancy for a part-time membership assistant at the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Action I is an action to approve the appointment of Holly Lyles to the Housing and Redevelopment Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments on the appointment?
No, just that this has been an open position for some time, so it was nice to get an applicant in.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item J is a discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of 2 repeaters. Is there a motion to approve? Well, let's have the discussion first, and then we'll know what the motion is. Discussion is first, and then the motion in this particular case, so we know what we're moving towards. Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, we got the quote in yesterday on the repeaters. I requested quotes from 2 different companies. Received a quote from one of the companies back. This is Two-Way Solutions Incorporated out of Sioux Falls, the old Sioux Falls two-way radio. They sent me a quote for a repeater for the city of White, would be mounted on their water tower. We have requested the city of Bruce. Right now, they are in contact with the owner of the elevator in Bruce. Obviously, we would not put it on the elevator if the elevator operator refuses. And at that time, I guess we'd have to decide what to do, but we're still discussing it with him. The goal is to put it on top of the elevator in Bruce, if at all possible, and the other one on the water tower. We got the quote. The quote came in much less than what I thought initially. I had a couple different quotes, and they was going to be right around $50,000 for individual repeat, or $25,000 each for individual repeaters. But by grouping them together, the price that I was quoted is $38,814.57. And once again, that is from Sioux Falls, Two-Way Solutions Incorporated. They've also got offices in Watertown. And
Go ahead and give us a little history on Two-Way Solutions. They've handled some of our projects and repeaters in the past and our maintenance.
Currently, Sioux Falls Two-Way has my maintenance contract. I've got 2 repeaters. I've got a repeater down at Sinai on top of the elevator. I got a repeater on the 20th Street Blue Water Tower, and I've also got a radio inside the 911 center that I pay quarterly maintenance fees to, and that's maintenance through Sioux Falls Two-Way Radio. And then, they're the Motorola operator in town, in the local area, and we've had good luck with them up until now.
Okay. Questions or comments? Do you have any questions before we?
This is also the company that did the radio study for us that we presented to you at the
Okay.
last meeting that shows the coverage. So if we go this route, they should be able to match what was, they used those two positions. They used the water tower in White and the elevator in Bruce to get that coverage that they showed us in the maps in the last meeting.
Budget-wise,
Budget-wise, I don't have a dime in my budget for this.
right. And so what would we be?
This is in my opinion, this is an emergency situation. We've had sporadic radio outages up in that area for a
No,
while.
not questioning the cause or anything, but just wondering, are we gonna take this out of our discretion or whatever,
Contingency, or I guess my question would be, when does E911 come into play with something like this? And is this an emergency expenditure out of E911 since it's emergency communications in the county? Or is it a county responsibility? I guess that would be my question for funding.
Well, I know the other county repeater, and that's my repeaters are considered county fire repeaters. Those are all under my coverage, under my budget.
And that's the question I had. The E911 is county communications, and we budgeted, what was it, 145,000 towards the E911? Yeah. We're
gonna purchase these right away, but so we don't have it in our budget, but is there excess dollars in the E911 that we could use, or?
No.
No.
but I'm just saying which, Bob's paying for some out of his department, and E911 is county communications. I mean, that's,
No, I would agree. I would like to see if we could take it out of E911, if that's a possibility, but this is, like you said, an emergency, something we're gonna have to do now, and we don't have it, if we don't have extra dollars in the E911, it doesn't matter, but, I guess that's a good question of down the road future, is that a justified use of the E911 funds?
Bob, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you real quickly. E911 funds could be used for the fire departments to upgrade their radios. I'm not absolutely convinced that this is going to solve all the problems with each of those departments because their radios are old, their radios are different, and I think some of the issues is their equipment. I know it's still our responsibility for this, but can we use E911 funds or fire department funds to upgrade their radios?
the White Fire Department just put a request into the company to come in and redo, make sure all radios are working.
Okay. But if
That'll go through our department.
Yeah, if they come in with a recommendation to replace radios, is there funding available for E911? I don't know if each of the fire departments have enough funds.
That would come under our, each department within the county has a fund that's set up, and that has been used in the past to purchase radios for the fire department.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the county commission does provide, and there's some tax dollars that go into a funding mechanism for local fire departments.
Already. Is there
Already.
adequate funding in the fire department's budgets, each individual one, to cover the cost of radios if that's deemed necessary?
Well, I mean, they've got the same responsibility that I've got for my radios and the sheriff's got for his radios. So, it's an ongoing program where you need to keep an eye. I realize sometimes people don't keep track of that, and they don't replace them when they should, but that's why we have to have a replacement system, and we come to you sometimes with our replacement systems, and sometimes we have to have deferred maintenance, and sometimes we don't. It's a total budgetary thing.
Okay. Well, that was my question on E911. Could those funds be?
The E911's got a state organization that they dictate on what the money can be spent on, and I do not know the answer to your question.
Okay. All right, I didn't either.
The joint powers agreements in Dropbox, if you want to pull it up, because it says specifically in there what it is that we're doing, and it says that the council serves, make sure I'm reading the right thing here, that the council serves a geographical area which shall primarily be limited to the boundaries of Brookings County. And the repeaters would be considered part of the public safety communication system, right?
I would think so. I did not get any assistance when I put the repeater in Sinai, when I first started back in 2003. I did not get any 911 assistance. It came out of, once again, we had to supplement our budget to put the repeater down in Sinai.
Can we ask?
Yeah.
Who do we ask? Or do we have to make a request to the state?
No, it would go to Joint Powers and we'd ask. I mean, it's all under our agreement.
It would go to the 911 Communications Council.
Okay.
On whether or not, if they're going to fund any portion of it.
And we didn't ask last time though, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
And what it says in there is that public safety communication shall be considered to mean, but shall not be limited to emergency telephone answering, dispatching law enforcement vehicles, alarm monitoring, dispatching firefighting equipment, both city and rural, providing 911 emergency service, and such other communications that are compatible with the purposes of this agreement. So do the repeaters fall within that definition?
I would think so.
I mean, do you know what we have in the 911?
I don't know. I don't know offhand.
It seems like,
what's in
didn't
it.
we put in a dispatch station at the city last time, and this was a while back. This was when I was on the board. Put on a third dispatcher, and it cost us $78,000, $80,000, something around there. And then that drained our kind of extra funds we had in the E911. And then we increased our commitment, both city and county did, to make sure there was some extra dollars in that account. And I think they talked about trying to keep a level of about $75,000 of cushion in case things like this would come up.
I actually think it was more like 30.
Yeah, it's about 30,000.
Is that 30,000 is what the cushion is, or is what they have in there?
Yeah.
And so if we were to ask for this, that would basically we'd have to ask for more funding from the city and the county to
Yes.
put some money in. Okay.
The next E911 meeting is July 18th, so a month from today is when they meet again.
Is there an
And would
issue
be
with
able to
approving
discuss
this
this.
today and then asking E911 if there's a chance of them co-funding or funding?
I guess that's what I'm feeling too. Let's get this,
We gotta
get this going and then work out the funding in the future.
We can do that. Okay, so then I guess, thank you, Bob. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is to move ahead with this
To
bid.
move ahead with this bid.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not, we'll call the roll.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item K is discussion and possible action to approve township culvert grant applications. And do we want to take each of these separately?
Probably, yeah.
Probably have to take each of them separately. All right, we have a culvert review notes. Do you want to give us a review first? Or somebody who's doing the review notes? Brian?
Well, first and foremost, I wanted everybody to keep in mind,
understand.
and I know we had talked about this in our little committee meeting, 31/14/27. First of all, you can see highlighted there, May. The county may enter into agreements with the townships. And then also after replacing any of the culverts, it'd be the township's responsibility to maintain thereafter. Guess it's just a couple of things I wanted to touch on there. Is there any questions about my notes? I know I kind of split everything up as per project. I guess the only one that I would recommend for denial would be that 18-inch culvert in Eureka Township. According to 31/14/27, that that does not meet the 16 square feet and opening criteria.
And that's application 1, 2, or 3? There's 3.
1.
1.
One at a time, or you want to?
It's entirely up to the,
Can I ask one question before we do that? So we set aside $100,000, right? And we had requests that total 69,805.
Yep.
Is that right? So we have enough money in our grant to fund each one of these?
Yep, and in our meeting, we decided that we would be contacting the townships to make sure that they know that there's still grant money available, and if they have any projects to move forward. I did have a couple questions yesterday. One of them was, being it's a hard winter, the spring funding, when we approve their project, say the township doesn't have money enough to do their project this summer, what's our procedure? Are we gonna, I mean, we pay upon the receipt of the project being completed, correct?
Correct.
But if the township doesn't have money to move forward to do the project in the first place, will we carry it into next year, or?
Wasn't that in the grant rules? We talked about that before.
The grant specifically, the letter specifically stated that it must be done in fiscal year 2019, and that our payment needs to be paid in this calendar year.
So this would, in the grant here, we'd be approving that amount of funding, and not saying that all these projects would be done.
We would.
If a township didn't have the money to move forward with a project, we'd still have money in our.
They'd have to reapply next year if they wanted to do it again,
Well,
right?
unless another township would come forward later in the summer and have money to do a project, that could be added on the end.
And just a couple things to note on my kind of synopsis spreadsheet. The first Eureka project, as Brian had stated, so I took that money off. That one was recommending denial on that. Also on the Eureka 2, their request was for the county to pay a full amount, but we're only going to do the 50-50 match on that. So that's why you see the 3670 reduction there. And then with Volga, I think the board discussed approving actually a little bit more than what their funding request was for, due to some permitting that they had taken upon themselves. I think they had done some work even prior to submitting the application, and there was some permitting that needed to be done.
They went above and beyond. They had a study showing and sizing the pipe to determine what size of pipe to put in.
any other comments?
Well, and just, example, Eureka 2, I think their application, they thought the size of the structure was large enough to where it was our total responsibility, and it was not. So that's why we only went to the 50%, which is what our grant is there. And that's one thing we just want to make sure that we're doing, is staying consistent with what letters that we sent out. We're staying consistent with that, and that they're following and they're doing the steps that we ask them, because there'll be future ones coming up, and we don't, just because we have some money left over, that we approve a couple extras outside the boundaries. I don't think we want to set that precedence. So I think we want to make sure we're staying consistent, and that, like Commissioner Jensen said, that there's still some remaining grant funds available, and that if we could maybe take some first come, first serve options coming in from other townships as things progress, stuff too. So,
Question to you, Commissioner Krogman, is there any changes you would make to Brian's recommendations?
no.
Okay.
I think it's
Based
exactly
on the
what we
applicants.
kind of discussed there.
Okay.
And the one thing we had at our meeting is there was a couple that came in late that Brian had a chance to get
Sure.
out and take a look, and we wanted to make sure his opinion on those, and then he's got his opinion on that, and we would follow with what he's recommending. in
So
my
again,
opinion.
these recommendations, the first one deny and the rest approve with Brian recommends changes, could be one motion to move approval of those recommendations. Unless you want to do each one separately.
I would think, I don't know, I think you want to do one by one, but that's, takes longer, I guess, it doesn't matter, it's one recommendation, but just to have either the talk or the vote on why, in the minutes for each one, or if we just heard it verbally, that's fine too, doesn't matter to me.
How do you want to proceed?
It's your call.
Well, I would make a motion when we look at that chart, the 2019 grant information, that we deny Eureka number 1, that chart be changed to include that we grant half of the amount for Eureka 2, and then the township would match the remaining half. And the rest of those amounts are the amounts that you all were recommending, is that correct?
Correct.
So my motion would be to approve grants in those numbers that are set forth in there with the 2 changes that I said.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And if we do this again next year, I think in our grant materials, we need to tell the townships that we have to be in compliance with that statute, so they can't ask for something that's less than the 16 square feet.
Okay.
So that they know that that's an issue.
I think what happened on that one, Commissioner Pierce, is they had submitted paperwork to Bob for damages in their township, and he just used the same thing.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to number 9, the Commission and Department Director's Report.
As Vicki had mentioned as part of her report, the surplus cash analysis was at just shy of 40%, so I had done the sheets to see the comparisons. So if you look at the yearly comparisons, we're really about average for surplus, general fund surplus. The state per diem rates are going up July 1st, and actually it really only affects a few changes to the meal reimbursement rates, and then the very first meeting of each year, we always pass a resolution that says we'll follow state rates for that. So I just wanted to make you aware that that is a change that is going to take place July 1. As we'd mentioned earlier, the US 14 bypass corridor study, the general public meeting Thursday night. There is a general public meeting, it looks like over in Volga too, at Valley Fibercom on Wednesday at 5:30, but then there is one here in this room on Thursday, June 27th at 5:30 as well, and we had kind of discussed that as part of Brian's report. And then there's information about SDACC resolutions that are due to the office by July 31st. Also, just to note, I've been working with a group on our website. As you know, are aware, July 1st, with the statute change that we have to have just the most current version of our ordinances on the website, and we've kind of been working on that since actually probably the beginning of April, May. We've been working on it, and everyone has gone through there, and everything should be updated, so we'll be in compliance starting July 1. And then just some upcoming meetings. I think it was mentioned the STIP review at First District is the 26th at 10 a.m. We've already talked about the corridor study, US 14 bypass corridor study. 4th of July is just around the corner. Offices will be closed on Thursday, July 4th. Safety Week here, specifically to this building, but other departments probably have some events too, will be the week of July 15th through the 19th, and that picnic, I believe it's 11:30 to 1:30. It may be 11 to 1. If that changes, I will let you know. But that's Thursday, July 18th is the safety picnic. And then First District has their picnic on Wednesday, July 17th, that same week, 6 o'clock. That's at Memorial Park in Watertown. And that's all I have.
Thank you. State's Attorney's Office report.
Nothing to report.
That's quick. Let's go through commissioners' reports. If we do this quickly, get a 5-minute break before we do our 10:30. So we'll start with Leanne.
On June 6th, I attended the Joint Powers meeting where we talked about the parking lot, but the parking lot for this building, not the parking lot for the BCOIC, and Jackie Lanning gave a presentation on that. And I think our bids came back less than budget, so we're under budget on that. And the other thing, it was $86,000 less than what we had estimated it was going to cost, the bids came in at. There is a proposal from the city that we take some or all of that $86,000 and put it into a bio swale, did I say that right? Yeah. We said that maybe that was a lot of money and we needed more information, and that's going to come back to us. On June 6th, attended governmental affairs. June 11th, attended budget hearings with the rest of you. On June 13th, we had a joint jurisdiction meeting. We discussed rural residential. We might have come to some understanding on what that pilot project is going to look like. Luke Mueller's putting that in writing. We won't have another meeting until the end of July, and he's going to try to get everything out in written form before then. And I attended a BEDC Investment Committee meeting yesterday. That would be my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Boersma.
Tuesday, June 4th was at the Mental Health Task Force presentation for city, county, and school board, and thanks all for being there. Those materials are all available on the county's website. Thanks to Stacy for getting that taken care of for us. June 11th was, again, at budget hearings all day. And then last night was an East Central Behavioral Health Board meeting. So that's
Thank you. Commissioner Krogman.
June 4th, the mental health presentation, which went very well, and appreciated all the work that they've done to that. And I know it's just a start, but got to start somewhere. So it's a nice collaboration, and we can all be probably working forward towards that process to protecting our citizens of Brookings County. The 5th was at Larry and I and Brian and Stacy met for the township grant applications, went through those, and you saw what we approved here today. And then budget meetings on the 11th. That's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner.
About Mears Ryan's Mental Health Task Force on the 4th. On the 5th, we reviewed the grant applications by the townships, and on the 11th, budget hearings.
Okay, June 4th, Mental Health Task Force presentation was well attended. The Joint Powers Board on the 6th, it's already been covered. The 11th was budget. 13th was joint jurisdictions, already been covered, plus the PPC POD meeting at noon, and then First District at 5 o'clock that reviewed their work study for the next year. That's my report. I'd entertain a 5-minute break before our 10:30 presentation. Please make it 5 minutes, and we'll get back here for our presentation BKV. Next item of business is item D, at 10:30 a.m. BKV Jail Expansion Design Development Update. And again, this is just an update for the benefit of the commission to know where we're at with the project. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Please introduce yourself and give us our update.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good to see you all. My name is Bruce Schwartzman. I'm a partner with BKV Group. Where we currently stand is we're in the design development stage, which is kind of when a lot of the detail of the project starts to come together. I'm actually meeting with the sheriff and jail administrator this afternoon to go through a variety of jail topics. Today, finishes, interior finishes of the jail, casework, what they need for various items and components of the interior workings of the jail function. So we're going to continue to go through that. We have a meeting slated for today. We have another one for July 23rd, August 6th, September 3rd, and really wrapping up that design development phase as we get into September, late September, somewhere in there. So in essence, the design development phase will be about a 4-month process, which is more than adequate for what we need to do on this project. After we complete the design development and you all approve the budget and the direction of the project at that point in time, then we go into construction documents. So again, we're looking at the construction document phase taking roughly 4 to 5 months so that we're bidding the project as we go into January, late January and early February, hitting that time. Also kind of intertwined with this discussion will be the selection of the construction manager at risk that you all are looking at. As we right now, I believe you've gotten the proposals in. I think you're looking at some interviews early July. Potentially that July 23rd date, depending upon the process and the sequences and decisions, they might be on board by the time that July 23rd meeting hits, at which point in time we would engage them to start to be involved with all these various meetings as well. Because our goal, our objective is to, when we hit towards the end of September, they're engaged in the project and they're actually able to help to produce that cost estimate confirmation for all of you at the end of September. There are things that we're going to be looking to bring back to this board. Right now it's just an update of where we are and what we're doing process-wise and answer any questions you all have. We do want to, while we're working with the sheriff and the jail administrator on the inner functions of the jail and the inner operations, the types of hardware, types of security glass, a lot of the things we saw on on the tour we took of Renville, we also want to bring back to the board what the final site design is. How are we handling site? How are we handling sidewalk? How are we handling landscape? What type of landscape? Is it maintenance free? Is it, all those various site topics. Anything that deals with the exterior of this building, I'd like to bring back to the commission and make sure you all are seeing what we're thinking. So we're thinking site plan and exterior design. Early on at one point in time, we looked at the idea of using limestone cladding to somewhat replicate and to work with the courthouse. Well, I think we've talked about that. There's some very, very nice quality precast products out there. Gage Brothers in Sioux Falls is a very, very good precast company, as well as some others. So I think we'd like to bring back some options to the board of still keeping a facility that's very attractive, that's a complement to the site, a complement to the neighborhood, but looking at some other materials that might be a little more cost efficient than what we were looking at previously. So we're going to develop some options that we'd like to bring back to you for your input. I'm thinking that August 6th meeting might be a good time for us to internally kind of go through and develop the things that we would do and then bring that back. And at the same time, again, we use 3D development of these models when we develop it. We could also do a little walkthrough of the jail as well and give you an update more three-dimensionally on the jail design at that point in time as well. I think that's my high-level overview and whatever questions you all might have.
Any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none. Only one comment on when you talked about the exterior design and options on the 4th of August. I think what we'll probably do with that is have you present those, but also ask for some public input on those design functions. So let it be noted that August 4th, we will probably take public comment on your proposals, your alternatives, so that we've got. So.
Mr. Chair, I believe also that date, excuse me, actually August 6th.
August 6th.
Okay.
August 4th
just
is
to be
Sunday.
clear.
whatever
I would
date it
be-
is.
I would be glad to show up Sunday.
All right, whatever date that is, we'll ask for some public input at that particular meeting, unlike today. All right, any other questions for him?
And Mr. Schwartzman, that would include physical material samples as well, correct?
That would be a good idea.
Okay, thank
We'd
you.
be glad to do that.
Okay, no other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. You all have a good day.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is an executive session. I need a motion to move into executive session in accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2 parentheses 4 for contract negotiations. Is there a motion to move?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll go into executive session.